What's going on, guys? Middle Tokusatsu here, and today we're doing a bit of a different review. This time we're taking a look at the Mcfarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman Beyond, and the reason why is I kind of wanted to branch out into other figure lines as well on this channel, and I've seen other TokuTubers do it as well, so I'm not the only one. And I've been collecting the DC Multiverse figures for a couple of months now, because I started with DCAU Batman from the animated series, and then continued with DCAU Superman. Now, I know this iteration of the character isn't quite from the DCAU. As a matter of fact, I think it's more so based on his appearance in the comics, which I am reading, by the way. But this is a character that originated from the DCAU, so in a strange way, it does kind of count. Now, just like with my Lightning Collection reviews, we'll take a look at the box art first and foremost, then the figure and his accessories. And then there's really no civilian head to look at, although I really would have liked one for Terry. But in a release like this, you're not really going to get that kind of thing. It's kind of asking for too much. But I'll get into that just a little bit later. But for now, let's get into it. Okay, so as far as box art goes, there's not a terrible amount to look at. Because on the front, you just have the figure inside. Name on the side there. And on the back, you get a bigger version of the collectible card that it comes with. Even though it's just a picture of the figure, I much would have preferred some actual comic art. So I'm not quite sure what their thinking process was there. On the side, name once again, nothing on top, and on the bottom, legal mumbo jumbo. So first impressions out of box, this is a great looking figure initially. Now, granted, there are a couple of issues that I have with him that I'll get into in just a few minutes, but just looking at him in general, like this looks like Batman Beyond. Granted, there are a couple of liberties taken, I believe. One thing with the utility belt. Like I said, this is more so based on his appearance in the comics, so it's not going to look like the one from the show, because it's kind of on a bit of a slant here. And also, I noticed he has actual gauntlets on his wrist instead of just the bat fins. And then as for his face, there's a bit of extra detail work going on in those lines there. So as far as accessories go, you get these two rocket propulsion effects pieces, a flight stand, which surprisingly enough, most other figures don't come with, especially the Superman ones, which I really think should, because, I mean, he flies. And then an extra pair of hands, which are honestly just non-clawed versions of his hands here. So they're regular hands. What I believe is his Batarang, even though this is not a show-accurate Batarang at all. And as a matter of fact, there's a second version of this figure that comes without the mouth here. Instead, it's just like a mouth plate. And that one actually does come with the show-accurate Batarang. So to get the full set, you gotta buy both, which I'm not gonna do. And then last but not least, you get the collector's card here, which is just a picture of the figure itself. And like I said, I much would have preferred an actual piece of comic art. And some text on the back. Real name, Terry McGinnis, height 6 feet, weight 198 pounds. And then Terry McGinnis was just an ordinary teenager until his father was mysteriously killed. Suspecting foul play, Terry meets an older, bitter Bruce Wayne and learns a secret hidden for decades. When Bruce refuses to help, Terry steals and dons a high-tech, tricked-out batsuit in a quest to avenge his father's death as Batman. So as far as articulation goes, it's a bit weird in some places, honestly, because starting with the feet, you get tipped-out toes here, and then my first kind of issue is with the ball-jointed ankles here, which it's kind of hard to move, and in some ways, it's kind of hard to get them to stand properly because they're so stiff, and it kind of makes them lean to the side a little bit. So I'm not quite sure if it's like still stiff out of box. If so, I just got to work with it a little more just to get it right. You've got a knee bend here, leg movement, go out, forward. Backward motion is kind of hindered by his wings here, so I'm not going to try that. Hand swivel here, excuse me. elbow joints, bicep, shoulder. Can go out about that far. Up and down motion. Ab crunch and a swivel. And then some range of motion in the head. And also, if you want to count this, the wings, of course, do come out. Now, before we get into accessories, there are a couple of things I wanted to note. As you may or may not have noticed, his wings here are just kind of there. And for anyone that knows Batman Beyond, you know that his wings here, he doesn't just go walking around with his wings out. And when they're not in use, they're just collapsed in his back. And you don't have the option to remove them here. But I have seen some videos where if you apply some hot water, you can actually get that out of that joint there. But as the figure is now, you're not really meant to do that. So I count that as an inaccuracy. And also, the back of his wings here are just plain red, when in actuality, the back here is black, and then the insides are red. So they took a couple of liberties here that I'd rather they wouldn't have, but what can you do? Okay, so now getting into accessories, here he is with his extra hands, and what I'm going to call the fake Batarang, because that is not his Batarang. And to hold it, you honestly have to just switch out the hands, because the claws aren't going to hold it. They're just too wide. And then here he is with the only other real accessory you can pose him with. It's the flight stand with the rocket propellers, which you honestly just plug in at the back of his feet, and then the front piece just kind of faces on the other side of his foot. And honestly, it's a nice touch. I think I'll actually display him like this. So when it comes down to it, DC Multiverse Batman Beyond here is a really cool figure to have in your collection. Issues with the wings aside, with the joint and also the back being painted red. And also the fake Batarang here, which I really don't prefer here. But the figure itself is still really, really cool. And especially if you have him in flight mode on the stand there, then the wings do serve their purpose. But anyway, that's about all I have. So as always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to like my Facebook page, Multiverse Tokusatsu. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. And this is Multiverse Tokusatsu, signing out.